Hello, future biologists. Welcome to our fascinating journey into the world of human biology. Today, we are diving deep into muscles, the incredible engines that power every move you make. From a simple smile to a marathon run, muscles are behind it all. We'll explore this topic across 4 levels of understanding, starting with the basics and building up to advanced concepts. Get ready to flex your knowledge. Let's kick things off with the fundamentals. What are muscles, and how do they help you in your everyday life? It's simpler than you think. So, what exactly are muscles? They're those soft, stretchy tissues in your body that allow you to move. Think about it. Every time you walk, talk, or even blink, your muscles are hard at work. Their main job is to contract, meaning they shorten, and then relax, or lengthen, to create force and motion. We broadly categorize them into voluntary muscles, which you control, like the ones in your arms, and involuntary muscles, which work on their own, like your heart. These amazing tissues are crucial for far more than just movement. Beyond helping you move, muscles perform several vital functions. Firstly, they enable all your movements from picking up a pen to running a race. Secondly, they maintain your posture, keeping you upright and stable throughout the day. Ever notice how your body feels warm after exercise? That's because muscles generate heat when they contract, helping to regulate your body temperature. And don't forget your heart, a powerful muscle constantly pumping blood, ensuring circulation. Muscles are attached to bones by strong cords called tendons. When a muscle contracts, it pulls on the tendon, which then pulls the bone, causing movement at a joint. They often work in pairs, like your biceps and triceps, one contracting to bend your arm, the other to straighten it. Now, let's test your understanding with a few quick questions. Take a moment to think about these. 1. What is the primary function of muscles? 2. Can you name 2 types of muscles based on how you control them, and give an example of each? And 3. How are muscles attached to bones, and what happens when a muscle contracts? Good luck! Ready to go a bit deeper? Let's explore the different types of muscles in more detail and get a glimpse into their amazing internal structure. Our bodies house 3 distinct types of muscles, each serving specialized roles. First, we have skeletal muscles, which are voluntary and appear striped or striated. These are the muscles you consciously control, like your biceps, allowing you to move your limbs. Next are smooth muscles, found in internal organs like your stomach and intestines. They operate involuntarily, managing functions like digestion without your conscious thought, and they don't have striations. Finally, the cardiac muscle, unique to your heart, is also striated but works tirelessly and involuntarily to pump blood. Under a microscope, each skeletal muscle is a bundle of muscle fibers, and each fiber contains smaller myofibrils, which are the true engines of contraction. Delving into the structure, a skeletal muscle isn't just a lump of tissue. It's an organized system of bundles of muscle fibers. Each individual muscle fiber, which is essentially a muscle cell, is packed with even tinier structures called myofibrils. These myofibrils are composed of 2 key protein filaments, the thin actin filaments and the thick myosin filaments. These filaments are arranged in repeating units known as sarcomeres. Think of a sarcomere as the basic building block, or the fundamental contractile unit, of a muscle. It's the precise arrangement of these sarcomeres that gives skeletal muscle its characteristic striped appearance and enables its powerful contractions. So, how do these tiny filaments actually make a muscle shorten? It's explained by the sliding filament theory. Imagine 2 sets of interlocking fingers. When a signal from your brain reaches a muscle, the myosin filaments, which have tiny heads, grab onto the actin filaments. They then pull the actin filaments past themselves, causing the sarcomere to shorten. This sliding action happens simultaneously across millions of sarcomeres, causing the entire muscle fiber, and thus the whole muscle, to contract. This incredible dance of proteins requires energy, which is supplied by a molecule called ATP. Without ATP, muscles couldn't contract or even relax. When oxygen runs low during intense exercise, muscles switch to anaerobic respiration, producing lactic acid and causing that familiar muscle ache. Time for some medium-level challenges. 1. Differentiate between skeletal, smooth, and cardiac muscles based on their location and whether they are voluntary or involuntary. 2. What are myofibrils and what are the two main protein filaments they are composed of? 3. Briefly explain the sliding action that causes muscle contraction. 4. What is the main energy source for muscle contraction and how is it primarily produced in the presence of oxygen? And 5. Why do muscles sometimes ache after strenuous exercise? Pause here to think through your answers. Alright, let's step up the game. Prepare to explore the intricate cellular machinery and the detailed chemical processes behind muscle action. To truly understand how muscles work, we need to zoom in on the individual muscle fiber. The sarcolemma is its outer membrane, conducting electrical signals, much like a neuron. Inside, the sarcoplasm, or cytoplasm, is rich in energy stores like glycogen and oxygen-binding myoglobin. Crucially, we have the sarcoplasmic reticulum, or SR, a specialized network that stores and releases calcium ions, which are the ultimate triggers for contraction. Extending inwards from the sarcolemma are transverse tubules, or T-tubules, which act like expressways, ensuring that electrical signals from the surface quickly reach deep into the muscle fiber, reaching every SR and coordinating a rapid, uniform contraction. This complex arrangement ensures that when a signal arrives, the entire muscle fiber responds almost instantly. Now, let's dive deeper into the sliding filament theory. Myosin filaments possess tiny heads that are crucial for contraction. These heads bind to specific sites on the actin filaments, forming what we call crossbridges. Once attached, these myosin heads pivot, pulling the actin filaments towards the center of the sarcomere in what's known as the power stroke. This action shortens the sarcomere. But how do they detach and reattach? That's where ATP comes in. An ATP molecule binds to the myosin head, causing it to detach from the actin. This ATP is then broken down, re-energizing the myosin head, allowing it to reattach further along the actin filament, ready for another power stroke. This continuous cycle of attachment, pivot, detachment, and reattachment, powered by ATP, is what drives muscle contraction as long as calcium ions and ATP are available. Muscle contraction doesn't just happen. It's initiated by a precise signal from our nervous system. This journey begins with a motor neuron, a specialized nerve cell that carries electrical impulses from your brain or spinal cord to a specific muscle fiber. The connection point between the motor neuron and the muscle fiber is called the neuromuscular junction. When a nerve impulse arrives here, it triggers the release of a chemical messenger known as acetylcholine. This acetylcholine then binds to receptors on the muscle fiber's sarcolemma, generating an electrical impulse, or action potential, within the muscle itself. This impulse rapidly travels along the sarcolemma and down the T-tubules, signaling the sarcoplasmic reticulum to release its stored calcium ions, setting the stage for contraction. Prolonged or intense muscle activity can lead to muscle fatigue. This often happens due to the buildup of lactic acid, a byproduct of anaerobic respiration when oxygen supply is low, which interferes with muscle function. Also, running low on ATP, the muscle's energy currency, contributes to fatigue. After intense exercise, your body goes into oxygen debt, needing extra oxygen to break down lactic acid and replenish energy stores, which is why you breathe heavily even after you stop exercising. Alright, it's time for some harder questions to solidify your understanding. First, describe the key structural components of a skeletal muscle fiber, including the sarcolemma, sarcoplasm, SR, and T-tubules. Second, explain the power stroke in the sliding filament theory and the crucial role of myosin heads. Third, how does ATP facilitate the continuous cycle of muscle contraction and relaxation? Fourth, what is a neuromuscular junction, and what is the role of acetylcholine in initiating muscle contraction? Fifth, discuss the primary causes of muscle fatigue during intense exercise. Sixth, what is oxygen debt, and why does the body incur it after strenuous activity? And finally, how do calcium ions fit into the overall mechanism of muscle contraction, starting from the nerve impulse? Think critically. You've mastered the fundamentals and the intricate details. Now, let's push the boundaries of your knowledge, exploring advanced concepts, biomechanical principles, and the fascinating specializations within the muscular system. Let's unravel the complete sequence of excitation-contraction coupling, the elegant link between a nerve signal and muscle action. It starts with an action potential, the electrical impulse, propagating along the sarcolemma and diving deep into the muscle fiber via the T-tubules. This depolarization then signals the sarcoplasmic reticulum to release a flood of stored calcium ions into the sarcoplasm. Now, in a relaxed muscle, the actin binding sites are blocked by regulatory proteins called troponin and tropomyosin. However, when calcium ions bind to troponin, it causes a conformational change that shifts tropomyosin away, exposing those crucial actin binding sites. This allows the myosin heads to form crossbridges and initiate the power stroke. When the nerve impulse ceases, calcium is actively pumped back into the SR, tropomyosin reblocks the binding sites, and the muscle relaxes. This precise choreography ensures rapid and controlled muscle action. Muscles don't just contract in one way, they exhibit various types of contractions depending on the task. In isotonic contractions, the muscle length changes while tension remains relatively constant, leading to movement. This has two forms: concentric, where the muscle shortens as it generates force, like lifting a weight, and eccentric, where the muscle lengthens while still generating force, acting as a brake, like slowly lowering a weight. Then there are isometric contractions, where the muscle generates tension, but its length does not change at all. Imagine pushing against an immovable wall. This generates force without movement. We also have muscle twitches, which are single, brief contractions from a single stimulus, and tetanus, a sustained contraction resulting from rapid, successive stimuli where individual twitches fuse together. Understanding these different contraction types is key to appreciating the versatility of our muscular system. Skeletal muscles are not monolithic, they contain specialized muscle fiber types, each optimized for different performance demands. Slow twitch fibers, or type I, are rich in mitochondria, myoglobin, and capillaries, giving them a red appearance. They are incredibly fatigue-resistant and designed for endurance activities like long-distance running or maintaining posture, contracting slowly but sustaining force for prolonged periods. In contrast, fast-twitch fibers, or type II, have fewer mitochondria and less myoglobin, appearing white. They contract rapidly and powerfully but fatigue quickly, making them ideal for power and speed activities like sprinting or weightlifting. Within fast-twitch, type II fibers are fast oxidative glycolytic, capable of both aerobic and anaerobic metabolism, while type I9 fibers are purely fast glycolytic, offering immense power but extremely rapid fatigue. The proportion of these fiber types varies between individuals and muscles, influencing athletic potential. Our musculoskeletal system functions as an intricate network of lever systems, allowing for efficient movement and force generation. A lever consists of a rigid bar, like a bone, a fulcrum, which is typically a joint, an effort provided by muscle contraction, and a load, which is the weight of the limb or an object being moved. We classify levers into three types. First-class levers have the fulcrum in the middle, like the neck muscles tilting your head back, similar to a seesaw. Second-class levers have the load in the middle, such as standing on your tiptoes, resembling a wheelbarrow. Most common in the body are third-class levers, where the effort is in the middle, like your bicep contracting to lift your forearm. This arrangement often prioritizes range of motion and speed over brute force, which is a common biomechanical compromise in the human body. Muscles also exhibit incredible adaptability. Hypertrophy, an increase in muscle size due to increased workload, involves the addition of more myofibrils, while atrophy is the opposite, a decrease in size from disuse or disease. Finally, the phenomenon of rigor mortis, the stiffening of muscles after death, occurs because ATP is no longer produced, preventing myosin heads from detaching from actin, leaving the muscles in a contracted state until cellular breakdown begins. Now for the ultimate test of your understanding with these advanced questions. 1. Explain the role of the troponin-tropomyosin complex and calcium ions in regulating muscle contraction and relaxation. 2. Differentiate between isotonic and isometric contractions, providing a clear example for each. 3. Compare and contrast slow-twitch and fast-twitch muscle fibers in terms of their physiological characteristics and the types of activities they are best suited for. 4. Describe the three classes of levers in the human body, providing a muscular example for each. And 5. Elaborate on the process of excitation-contraction coupling, detailing the flow of events from nerve impulse to muscle contraction. Let's continue with the remaining 5 challenging questions. 6. Why does muscle hypertrophy occur, and what cellular changes are involved? 7. Explain the phenomenon of rigor mortis in terms of ATP and myosin-actin interaction. 8. How do the different types of muscle fibers contribute to the overall performance of an athlete in a mixed sport event? 9. Discuss the biomechanical advantages and disadvantages of the third-class lever system, which is predominant in the human body. And 10. Beyond ATP depletion and lactic acid, what other factors can contribute to muscle fatigue at a cellular level? These questions require deep thought and synthesis of all the information we've covered. And that brings us to the end of our in-depth exploration of muscles. We've journeyed from basic movements to the intricate cellular and biomechanical mechanisms that power our bodies. I hope you found this topic as fascinating as I do. For more such engaging and comprehensive educational content, make sure to visit synapse.omaps.in. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for continuous learning. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning. See you next time.